This is Laura Trahan, a registered dietitian in the Cardiac and Pulmonary Rehab Department of Inova Fairfax Medical Center. She has more than 15 years of experience in the field of dietetics. She obtained her bachelor's degree in exercise physiology from Ohio Northern University and a Master of Science degree in clinical nutrition from East Tennessee State University, and completed her dietetic internship through Michigan State. Lauren has worked in multiple healthcare environments in Detroit, Baltimore, and Washington, as well as in an in-home infusion program. Laura, I'm going to give you the floor now. Let me pull up your slides since we ran into a little bit of some technical snags here, but give me 1 second and I think I'll be able to do this. Laura, you just need to let me know whether you are seeing the slides as a full presentation mode.
Yep, they're as
Okay.
the presentation.
So the floor is yours. I'm going to disappear and you just need to let me know when to advance the slides.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Levy, and thank you, Rana, for having me here tonight. And thank you also, everyone, for hopping on here. I'm excited to just get this discussion going about this really interesting topic. So if we can move to the next slide, our objectives for tonight are going to be discussing the relationship between body weight, dieting, heart health, and just overall health. We're going to talk about mindfulness and intuitive eating techniques. And then we're going to review some action items and goal setting strategies that you can also hopefully incorporate into your daily life to also help promote just physical and mental health. Next slide, please. So just something to keep in mind. There are so many factors when it comes to components of our overall well-being. Weight is only one factor. We talk about weight a lot, but when it comes to overall health, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, the World Health Organization determinants of health, they determine things based on all of these different lists of um, things such as culture, genetics, health services, education. So as we can see, weight is only one component of overall health. So I don't want to focus too heavily on the words weight and weight loss, but I really want to just talk about ways that we can instill some healthy eating patterns into our daily habits or our daily routines that can hopefully ultimately also lead to weight loss. Next slide. So what can healthy habits accomplish? And when I'm talking about healthy habits, we're talking about things like maybe it's decreasing portion sizes. Maybe it's decreasing the amount of added sugars that we're consuming in our day. Maybe it is getting more movement in, more steps. Maybe it's decreasing the amount of salt or how much fast food or how much dining we're doing out at restaurants. Any of these things, these are all healthy habits, and all of these things can help decrease the risk for heart disease, heart failure, high blood pressure, different types of cancers, type 2 diabetes, and they can also improve blood sugar control, blood pressure, our lipid panels. They can help improve our HDL, which is our good cholesterol in our body, decrease our LDL, which is our bad cholesterol, help our triglyceride levels, help with joint pain, help our ability to breathe. And just losing 5 to 10% of body weight can offer benefits. We don't have to have these grand measures of, excessive weight loss, because even just 5 to 10% can offer benefits. That may look differently for everyone too. That may be 5 pounds for someone, that may be 10 pounds for someone. But even small amounts of weight loss can help improve all of these things that I just talked about. Next slide. So these are just some things to think about. Healthy weight loss happens gradually. A half a pound to 2 pounds per week is considered healthy weight loss. And I know a lot of times, if we're putting in the work, we're working out or we're eating healthy, a lot of times we want to see quick results just because we feel like we are working so hard. but it is a gradual process. The more consistent you are, even with small gradual changes, the bigger the results you will see over time long term. I would try to avoid anything out there that might promise, more than 2 pounds per week of weight loss. Um, a lot of times, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is, or it's probably just not sustainable. If you're losing large amounts of weight at a time, sometimes that's not always fat weight either. Sometimes that can be water weight if it's coming off really quickly because we're doing these big restrictions. So I always encourage people as well to ask themselves, is this something, whether it's a different way that you're eating, or if you are on some kind of diet, I always encourage you to ask yourself, can I keep this up 3 months from now? Can I keep it up 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now? Because we want these to be long term lifestyle changes, not just, okay, I did something for 30 days, I did it. Now what? We do want this to be a long term um, success that you feel like you can have this eating or this healthy eating pattern for lifetime. Also be cautious of extreme restriction or eliminating whole food groups. If we're getting to the point where we're taking calories down so low that we're physically not feeling well, or if we're eliminating whole food groups, that can really deprive us of some really vital nutrients, fiber, and vitamins and minerals that our body really needs. But I think it's also very important to find what works for you. Everyone is different, everyone has different needs, we have different body compositions. Um, Even in my one-on-one sessions with any cardiac or pulmonary patients, the overall, we're always talking about heart health or lung health, of course, but I tailor each session so specific to everyone because everyone is different. Everyone's on a different path. Maybe you're on weight loss medication and you're just looking to instill some healthy habits along with that. Maybe you've tried some diets that are restrictive and you're looking to just kind of free yourself from that and work on some healthy eating patterns. So there's a lot of different things out there, but it's most important you find what works for you. Next slide, please. So, when I talk about dieting, things like really reducing caloric intake or taking out whole food groups, if we restrict ourselves too much, it can really mess with our metabolism, which can also it can slow our metabolism and can cause the hormones that regulate our hunger and fullness cues to get out of whack. Ultimately, we also might store or hold on to fat because our body just doesn't want to let go of it. So we may also overeat, not because we're weak, but because our bodies may be trying to get out of that self-imposed famine that we have ourselves in by not giving us enough nutrients or enough calories. And even if you're not on a diet, but maybe you have been on one or thinking about going on one again, you may also overeat feeling like, okay, I want to really just get in what I can right now, knowing you're going to be restrictive again in another week or two. Next slide, please. So, I really want to just discuss shifting that dieting perspective to more of healthy eating pattern. A lot of studies have shown that restrictive dieting can ultimately lead to weight gain. So, if we can reduce our guilt and shame around food and better body image acceptance, sometimes we can tend to develop those better eating habits over the long term. Some of the dieting messaging out there also can tell us that our food decisions reflect on our worth as a person, which is not true. Such as, oh, if we're eating the bad foods that things are sometimes categorized as, we're a bad or a weak or unworthy person. And that can also sometimes perpetuate some of the um, unhealthy cycles of emotional eating as well. Next slide. So, as far as resetting our dieting mindset, I think it's important categorize our foods as good or bad. Um, I typically, will discuss with individuals different food groups and go through which foods may be the most heart healthy or maybe ones that are better for our blood sugars or can help improve them. But I usually don't use the labels as good or bad. There are certain foods I think that is important we limit, or just be knowledgeable that they may have more saturated fat in them, they may have more sugar in them, they may have more cholesterol in them. But as long as we're being mindful with those and still allowing ourselves to have them in portion controlled servings, that can all be part of a healthy, balanced eating pattern. Try not to subtract from eating. A lot of times diets have us feeling like, you get lists of things that you can't have or you feel deprived. Instead, I think look at your daily intake as what can I add to it here? What's going to fill me with really nutritious nutrients, with fiber, things like whole grains, whole grain bread, wild rice, oatmeal, things that have got a lot of nutrients in them, fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, all those things that are going to really sustain us throughout the day and make us feel good, give us a lot of energy. And I think it's always important as well to limit the negative self-talk. A lot of times we like to think about, oh, what didn't we do over the weekend, or oh, I shouldn't have had that second helping at the celebration I was at. But instead, think about the things that you have done well. A lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit. Maybe you drank a lot of water or you really increased your water intake for the day and that was a goal of yours. Or maybe you got more movement in. You got more steps in for the day. Those are all things that we definitely want to focus on as well. Next slide. And then this is going to move us into some other techniques, some mindful and intuitive eating techniques that are also instilling those healthy eating habits, healthy eating patterns in our day to day. Next slide. So, when we talk about mindful and intuitive eating, they're based on different principles, but they both promote self compassion, self trust, and just an improved relationship with food. Next. So, how can these techniques help us? Both mindful and intuitive eating allows us to reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with our bodies, break through that dieting cycle that's telling us we need rules and restrictions and discipline. It gives us a little more freedom, but still is instilling healthy eating when it comes to portion sizes and choosing different types of foods. It can also help just decrease that preoccup- preoccupation with and anxiety with food, body size and shape, overeating, binge eating, guilt, shame, things that can be associated with dieting. And one last thing it also allows for, it allows for us to slow down. Really slow down, enjoy our food, think about what we're actually putting into our bodies. Next slide. So I want everyone just to reflect for a moment. We don't often think about what we're eating, when we're eating. Life can get very busy, very chaotic. So sometimes we just need to take a step back and actually think about, what did you eat for your last meal? Think about that. Were you present with your food or were you distracted by other things? And did you eat because of the time on the clock, or were you actually hungry? Next slide. So, when we're talking about mindful eating is paying attention to the sensations in our body, the thoughts and emotions that may arise when you're eating a meal or having a snack. It is also allowing us to connect with our bodies instead of feeling, or instead of on how we should feel. Like instead of, oh, I feel guilty for having a piece of cake, or instead of saying, oh, I'm really proud because I didn't eat that and I stuck to my diet. It's more about being in tune with your body and also, not getting away from some of those rules. So, being in tune with taste, textures, the nourishing aspects of food. What is that food actually doing for our body? And then also, just it also allows us to eat to feel comfortably satisfied, where we feel like we're full and we're not overly filling ourselves. Next. So, some benefits of mindful eating: there's increased awareness of our portion sizes. Because we're allowing ourselves to slow down, it can improve our digestion and absorption, which is very important. It can also increase our enjoyment, satisfaction, and pleasure from food. Better understand our motivations for eating. Why are we eating? Are we actually hungry? Physically hungry? Are we having cravings? Are we eating out of emotions? It can help us appreciate and be grateful for the food in front of us. It can increase our ability to cope with non physical reasons for eating. It can also empower us to make healthy choices because we're the ones that are dictating what we're going to put in our mouth, not just a table that's telling us what we should and shouldn't have. And it can also prevent overeating. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to actually realize we're full. So if we're eating something in less than 10 minutes, a lot of times before we actually even realize we're full, we may already be reaching in for seconds. So I think by just slowing down, giving yourself time to digest, having some water or a beverage in between, and then it allows you to realize, oh, am I really actually still full or am I just eating because the food's there? Next slide. So, how do we incorporate mindfulness while we're eating? Not every time are we going to be able to do this, but I think this is a good, there's some strategies here that you can do. And then if you start to practice them, sometimes you start to do them without even realizing you're doing it. So check in with yourself. Maybe it's at the first bite, maybe it's at the beginning of your meal, midway through, last bite. At the check ins, ask yourself these questions: how am I feeling? Am I calm? Am I anxious? Am I stressed? What is motivating me to eat? Am I actually hungry? Am I eating just for comfort? Where has this food come from? Take a moment just to appreciate where you got the food. And how hungry or full do I actually feel? Did I eat my first serving or my first portion and I feel pretty content? So those are all some strategies you can use to check in while you're eating. Eating slowly and chewing thoroughly, and then just limiting distractions during eating. Try to put the work away, even if it's for 20 to 30 minutes. Try to turn the TV off. Or I know it's hard, we're on our phones a lot, or we might have the TV on a lot, but even just allowing yourself to be free of distractions for that period of time. Next slide. This is a mindful eating exercise. There's a lot out there. On there's videos. There are different Word documents that kind of guide you through it. For time purposes, we're not going to do this one, but I did want to put this on there if it's something you want to try. It takes less than 5 minutes, and you usually start by doing it with just one item. For example, an orange or a raisin, or I believe this example here is a piece of chocolate. And it will have you kind of go through different steps and really just look at what you have in your hand, whether that's the orange, look at the texture, see how it feels, smell it. And it'll guide you with some different questions. But this is a great exercise to practice how to mindfully eat. And then if you want to do more of a guided video one, there's also some great resources for that online as well. So moving into intuitive eating, we were all born intuitive eaters. And as I'm watching my 2-year-old son, I'm thinking, wow, yes, we really were born intuitive eaters. He will let me know when he is hungry, and he will absolutely let me know when he is full. Either the food's on the floor or it's been given to the dog. So when we were young, I feel like we were able to be more in tune with those cues when we're hungry and when we're full. But throughout time, a lot of even diet messaging has made us disconnect with those cues. Or it may have told us you're hungry, but you shouldn't eat right now. So, intuitive eating, it's an evidence-based mind-body health approach. It was developed by two registered dietitians, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch in 95. And then there was a fourth edition book released in 2020. And they have a lot of experience. They specialize in different areas. But intuitive eating encompasses principles of mindful eating, but it also incorporates instinct, emotion, and rational thoughts about food. It can help move past fear and judgment and just allow you to have some true satisfaction and peace when eating as well. Next slide. So, intuitive eating, there are 10 concepts or principles that go along with it. Number one is just rejecting that diet mentality, trying to resist falling prey to any way of eating that's going to promise you certain things, promise you weight loss, um, or trying to reject anything that is, saying you shouldn't eat after 6 o'clock or after 7 o'clock. Our digestive systems don't just shut down at 6:05 or at 7:05. So again, trying to free yourself of some of those strict rules. Honoring your hunger. It's important to check in with your body every couple hours. Keep some snacks handy. That can help keep your energy up. Fuel it when it needs to be fueled, whether that's with some fruits and vegetables or some healthy snacks, some low fat string cheese with some crackers, just something that you have on hand that when your body's asking for it, if you're lightheaded or your stomach's growling, you can keep your body happy by fueling it. Making peace with food. Nothing is off limits, which is also sometimes hard as sometimes if you have restricted yourself from certain things and then all of a sudden it's not off limits, that can be kind of hard to navigate too. But there are other resources out there that can help with determining your hunger and fullness cues and just help with overeating as well. Challenging the food police is another concept. Try to replace those negative thoughts with positive statements. Things like, oh, I shouldn't eat that piece of cake. It's going to make me gain weight. With, you know what? I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables today with some lean proteins or fish or some really great pieces of lean meats. So I'm going to allow myself to have a small slice of cake and enjoy that with friends or family. Discover the satisfaction of flavor. Give yourself to permission to seek pleasure in your eating experience. Enjoy what you have, and then allow yourself to move on with your day too. Next slide. Another concept is feeling your fullness, just recognizing what comfortably full versus overly full. You know, that feeling where you're feeling like, oh my goodness, I need to unbutton the uh, top button of my pants, or if it's after Thanksgiving, that kind of full. And also just trying to reject that I need to finish my plate mentality. Cope with emotions with kindness. Maybe ask yourself if you are eating or if you're eating out of emotion, what need is not being met? It's okay to emotionally eat sometimes, but it's also, that if you are eating and something is not being met, that root cause is still going to be there. So I think it's really important to do a deep dive and figure out too, maybe there's something else that's not being met there that can't be figured out with food. Respect your body. Think about what your body does for you every day. What do you appreciate about it? Our bodies are amazing. They do so much. We have one body, so just appreciate it. Take care of it. Give it credit too. But think about the things that it does for you. Movement is very important, and focusing on health promoting benefits. not just burning calories, but also what is movement? What are more steps? What is, maybe strength training or jogging or whatever that movement is? Think about things like increasing your flexibility, increasing your energy, decreasing stress, maybe increasing your lab work. Um, so it's using movement to do other things other than just burn calories, which burning calories is great. You're going to get that from movement, but other things as well. And then lastly, just honoring your health. Choose those foods that are nutrient dense, packed with, whether they're protein rich, healthy fats, um, fruits and vegetables, anything that's going to really optimize your energy level. Next slide. So, some benefits of intuitive eating: it can improve self esteem and body image, increase body appreciation, decrease emotional eating, decrease disordered eating, improve emotional coping skills. It can improve those good cholesterol levels, your HDL, and lower triglyceride levels, and just increase your satisfaction in life because eating and being around people and eating is enjoyable. Next slide. So now I just want to move on to some action items to promote overall mental, physical health that hopefully will be helpful in some of your day to day. Next slide. So, some daily strategies you can do to hopefully help. Take control of your food. Maybe try smaller portions and see how you feel after that without, maybe you'll realize like that, oh, I feel good, not overly full. Or maybe you put smaller portions on a smaller plate. And that way, sometimes that can also trick the mind to feeling like, oh, wow, there seems like there's a lot more food in front of me instead of putting it on a really big plate where it looks like a smaller amount of food. And that way, if you're starting with smaller portions too, you may not be, or you may not feel like you want to waste the food. Try not to eat from a box or bag. I know this is hard. If I go into the pantry and I grab a box or a bag of snacks, I know for sure will eat 2 to 3 times more than what I would if I just got a bowl out, put it in my bowl, headed to the couch, close the pantry door, and called it a day. So really just try to work on those strategies, even just portion out your bowl's worth and then putting the bag back in the pantry. Try to focus on small, balanced meals with healthy snacks throughout the day that can help improve energy. It can help from overeating later instead of going long periods of time without eating anything and then feeling like you're starving later in the day. Try to have a plan. Meal prepping isn't always easy. I try to keep it simple. The more I have a plan, even if it's on a weekend, the more successful I am. I found that I was making a meal plan and then grocery shopping and then prepping, and I was feeling like, wow, this is taking up a lot of my weekend. I don't want to spend this much time. So I found ways that worked for me, and for me, it's just to online grocery shop. It cuts my the time I'm doing that in half. Maybe you like to grocery shop and look at food labels, and that's great too. Um, but maybe instead of prepping 7 days worth, think of 2 to 3 meals that will create some leftovers for you as well. So you're not feeling like, okay, every night I'm spending time in the kitchen and you're just getting into the burnout mode too. And also just eating a variety of those fruits and vegetables, natural foods, things that we all know that packaged foods are going to have more added sugar, sometimes more trans fat, more salt, more cholesterol. So, really just trying to work on incorporating more whole foods in instead of as many packaged or processed. Next slide. Eating your colors is also another great strategy. Trying to get 2 to 4 servings of fruit in a day and 3 to 5 servings of vegetables. You know what? If you're not a big fruit or vegetable eater, maybe you're not eating any. Even eating one per day is better than none. Maybe you eat two and you want to try to eat three per day. So even by those small incremental changes, those can also lead to really great health benefits. You could do microwave, excuse me, steamed frozen vegetables, fresh. If you're doing canned vegetables, I would just try to choose low sodium or no salt added, and that way you can add your own spices or herbs, and you're not getting the ones that are already filled with as much salt. Maybe you try adding vegetables to sandwiches. You throw up some cucumber or some red pepper in your sandwiches or more on top of salads. Try to stock the refrigerator with one fruit or vegetable in baggies or Tupperware for the week. I try to make it easy. I think to myself, okay, on Sunday, I think I'll just do apples and carrots this week, or grapes and cucumbers this week, just for different snacks. And I bag those up, and that way I know if they're already in the refrigerator, I can just grab them. And I'm much more successful if I just in the morning grab that for myself before I'm running out the door. If you're doing fruit, fresh, canned, or frozen is fine. If you're doing canned, I would just try to get fruit in water, its own juice, or light syrup, or trying to drain the syrup off. And then, of course, if it's frozen, just trying to choose 100% fruits that have been, or that don't have the added sugar with them. Some healthy swaps. There are some different alternatives we can do if you're trying to incorporate more fish or more lean meats into your eating pattern. Seafood, great option. Salmon, halibut, tilapia, um, tuna, cod, any of these are going to be so lean, provide us with a lot of protein. Salmon's got a lot of healthy fats in it, very heart healthy, omega-3 fatty acids, skinless poultry, lean cuts of beef, tenderloins, sirloins, or like a 90% lean or greater ground beef. Anything that ends in loin is typically going to be leaner. Even like a pork loin is going to be leaner than a pork chop. So maybe we want to incorporate some of those items in instead of having as much bacon or sausage, salami, bologna, hot dogs, ribs, things that like that. Does not mean we cannot have those ever. It's just important to note those are higher in cholesterol, higher in saturated fat, higher in salt. So those are items that we definitely want to watch our portion size of and how often we're eating them. Maybe you want to experiment with more plant proteins. Maybe you still really enjoy lean meats or fish, but you do want to incorporate more plant proteins in. So you want to start doing maybe one meal a week where you're not using meat. Maybe you're using things like beans or chickpeas or tofu or edamame or any of these items listed. They've got a lot of great protein, healthy fat, and fiber, including whole grain breads, brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal. Those are all wonderful sources of fiber that can all help with cholesterol levels. Those are going to, like I said, have much more fiber in some of your more refined um, like white flour products or white rice. They've stripped away some of the fiber in those. So just getting more things with whole grains in them are going to have more fiber and be more beneficial to heart health. Also, look at your different dairy products if you're doing dairy. If you're doing whole milk, maybe you look at changing to 2% milk, or even looking into different dairy alternatives. There's a lot out there. There's soy milk, almond milk, cashew milk. There's really no right or wrong. I think as long as you're even with 1% or skim, it doesn't have to be a plant-based dairy product. Even just doing a 1% or skim milk is very, very heart healthy. And then just trying to drink more water and unsweetened beverages, trying to not have as many sugary sodas, juices, or alcohol. That all leads to increasing added sugars in your daily intake. We want to reduce added sugars because the more added sugars you take in, that can definitely increase your triglyceride levels. That can also be a risk for heart disease. And per the American Heart Association, the recommended amount is to stay under for men is about 9 teaspoons of sugar, of added sugar a day. And for women, it's 24 teaspoons of added sugar per day. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Grams. nine, nine or I didn't mean 24. 6 teaspoons for women, 9 teaspoons for men. And just to put that in perspective, one 12-ounce can of soda has 10 teaspoons of sugar in it. Added sugar, more sugar than what is even recommended for the day. So that just is a way of, kind of putting that into perspective, how much sugar is actually in soda. Next slide. So, when I talk about some of those healthy swaps, sometimes you look at all those things and it's like, well, okay, how do I put that together on my plate? How do I put that together for a breakfast, for a lunch, for a dinner? I put some examples here that kind of incorporate everything I just talked about to help maybe give you some guidance with what that looks like. Some contain protein, or lean meats or fish. Some do not contain any meat, if you want to try some more meatless options. But these are just all different ways that, if you're looking for meal planning, um, this is a good place to start. Next slide. So, as far as dining out, these are some tips that can help, even just with some healthy choices. Asking for substitutions. Maybe you ask for a baked potato or a side salad instead of fries. Maybe you choose to split an entree or dessert. Um, Asking for things on the side, sauces or dressings. Or if you know that, you might fill up on the chips or the bread basket ahead of time, because, I know if I'm hungry and I get to a restaurant, yes, it's very easy to eat those things and eat a lot of them. Maybe you ask for them to come with your meal, or you just ask them to only give you one basket and that is it. And it will never hurt to ask, the wait staff what substitutions they may have if they have a low sodium or a heart healthy menu. It can never hurt to ask. I would always advise you to do that as well. Next slide. This is the food. It used to be the food guide pyramid. They have since changed it to the myplate.gov has changed it to more representation of how we eat a plate. We don't eat a pyramid. So I think it's just gives you a better snapshot of portion sizes. And not every meal is going to look like this, but I think it's a great way of visualizing your plate when you are sitting down to meals and what serving sizes look like. If you do need any more information and just want to go more in depth with serving sizes of your different food groups, myplate.gov is a great place to do that. Next slide. When we're talking about goals, if you're thinking about goals for yourself, these are some different strategies you can use as far as how to come up with goals. SMART goals are more specific, not as broad. So they allow you, to achieve something that's, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. So maybe a goal is I want to practice more mindful eating. And the SMART goal is more specific. For example, I will eat at least one meal each day sitting down and without distractions, like without your TV, without the phone this week. Or maybe your broad goal is I want to increase my movement. So, how can we be more specific with that? In the next 3 months, I will increase my current average step count from 6,000 steps to 8,000 steps, or 2,000 steps to 3,000, or 10,000 to 12,000, wherever you're at with that. Um, or, it can be anything from I want to increase my strength training to a couple times per week, whatever you feel like you really want to work on. Next slide. So, just some additional tips I want to quickly go over. Support yourself with healthy lifestyle habits. Self care is so, so important. Um, we get busy, life gets busy. Maybe you're caring for others. But even if you can find small snippets of time, whether that's 20 minutes to sit down for a meal, whether that's 20 minutes to go outside, to go for a walk or go on the treadmill or do whatever kind of movement that makes you um, that gives you energy, just try to find some time to give yourself some self-care because Your health is just as important as anyone else's too. Strive to accept your feelings as temporary. Maybe you're having an off week or an off day. That's okay. We're all human. Um, Tomorrow's a new day. It's okay. Those feelings can pass. Try to get enough sleep. It is, if we're stressed or don't have enough sleep, sometimes we can overeat. That can also lead to weight gain. As we talked about, make exercise a priority. If you need to seek other help just for some motivation, so healthy as well, whether that's from a dietitian, a doctor, a trainer, a therapist, or a counselor, or just recruiting a buddy, a friend, a family member, anybody that maybe will help keep you on track, whether that's getting to a workout class with you or going for walks around the block, anything that you feel like will help you stay on track. Next slide. And just a couple things to remember. So instead of those restricted diets, try to eat mindfully, intuitively, try to make sensible changes that you know will work for you long term. Try to focus on things other than the scale, even though I know it can be so frustrating at times if that scale's not moving and you're putting a lot of work in. But even if it's things like, I want to get off of certain medications, or I really want to improve my labs, I'm going to do what I can to maybe make some of those changes happen. Or even if it's something like, I'm going to be proud of myself for all of the health efforts I'm doing. Ask yourself, why do you want to make the change? Why is that important to you? Write it down if you need to. Look at it every day. Consider the source where you hear theories about different things when it comes to nutrition. There is so much out there. I'm Sometimes I have trouble keeping up with it. There's a lot of different things online. I would just say find a source that is backed up by science, evidence-based. The American Heart Association is a wonderful place to start, but just make sure if you ever read anything, look and see where that source is coming from. And then counteract any negative feelings that you might be having. Try to change that with a positive thought. I deserve to take better care of myself like this always. A little lapse doesn't have to become a big lapse. Things like that. Next slide. And then lastly, just a takeaway message. Focus on long-term small changes to your eating patterns. The less you focus on restricting and categorizing foods, and the more you focus on those healthy eating behaviors around food and exercise, the healthier your body, your heart, and your mind will be. Next slide. And then just some resources I do want to share with you. These are wonderful resources. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It is eatright.org if you want to visit the website. You do have to be enrolled through Inova's cardiac or pulmonary rehab programs to meet with me, but my email is on the last slide here, and you are welcome to email me for any questions. If you're looking for a dietitian in your area, you can always go to that eatright.org, find a nutrition expert. There's a red button you click on, you put in your zip code, and there's a plethora of outpatient dietitians or inpatient that will pop up, that will specify what they are specializing in, whether it's intuitive eating, diabetes, heart health, GI health. So that's just a great resource. Some other recipes and online resources here, if you're looking for more meal plans, Eating Well is a great website to get into more meal plans. There's Mediterranean style eating on there. There's vegetarian, there's vegan, there's diabetes, you name it, they got it on there. The book for intuitive eating I have put here. And if you visit this website, you can, if you want to look into the book and learn more about that, that is on there. The Center for Mindful Eating has some great free webinars if you want to practice mindful eating. Of course, the American Heart Association, your gold standard heart health. There is also the American Diabetes Association, and then myplate.gov for any more recommendations on serving sizes and things like that. Next slide. And these are just some references. And next slide. And thank you. So like I said, my contact is here. If there's anything you need, you are more than welcome to reach out as well.
I'm having trouble unmuting myself, but here I am. Okay. Well, Lauren, that was outstanding. A lot of information in a relatively short period of time. And I've lost the Q&A, but that's okay. I took notes. Here it is.
Okay.
We have about 12 minutes left, and I'm going to try to feed a bunch of questions to you. I'm going to actually take the liberty of starting myself because this is part of Heart Month, and this is part of Inova Heart and Vascular, and I want to get back to some of the mindful and intuitive eating issues you brought up, but maybe we can target a couple of diagnoses and help folks really understand the importance of what they eat. So let's talk about folks who have heart failure, all right? Um, it does it matter what they eat, and can what they eat really impact their health?
Yes, absolutely. Especially when it comes to heart failure, even just, we really want to watch our salt intake. A lower sodium diet is around 2,000 milligrams per day. But if we want to be more conservative, especially if you have hypertension, I would say even from around 1,500 milligrams per day. But that is so important for heart failure. It's important for managing blood pressure and just making sure we're not getting too many of those packaged food items. That's where you're going to find the bulk of your sodium content. So I would say the more home cooking and whole foods you're doing and you're controlling what you're putting into that food, the more that, or the better off that you're going to have less salt in your overall plate of food.
Right. I think a lot of people misunderstand sodium and salt, right? Sodium and salt are two different things. Most of the most of the sodium Americans get in their diet is not the salt they add at the table. It's all the sodium that's contained in preservatives, canned food, prepared foods, restaurants, junk food, baked goods, things of that nature. And so would you say it's especially for people who either have heart failure or high blood pressure, for whom sodium intake is very important, they should read labels.
Oh,
You'd
absolutely.
you'd be surprised what you learn from reading some labels, and you can
Absolutely.
really be
There,
shocked.
yes, and usually I like to keep different labels in my office, and I typically will go through the labels with each individual I meet with to actually point out. I think until you're actually looking at that label, it is shocking how much sodium is in some of the items that you're eating. So yes, absolutely. Label reading so important. Just because an item might say on it reduce sodium, that does not necessarily mean it has low sodium in it. So I usually will always stress, make sure you turn that label over, look at the sodium content to see how many milligrams of salt you're consuming.
Right. I'll give one more plug here. There's a lot of data that says if Americans would just reduce their sodium intake a little bit, not only does a little bit of sodium reduction reduce blood pressure across the board, but it extends life. And we'd really extend a lot of life years to people if they reduce the sodium in their diet. How about patients who have coronary artery disease? What should they be thinking about in terms of diet?
Yeah, so with coronary artery disease, I would focus on saturated fat, lowering the amount of saturated fat in your diet. Saturated fat is going to come from things like butter or high fat cuts of beef, things like ribeye or New York strip or bacon, sausage, hot dogs, salami, um, and really trying to focus more on lean proteins, fish, lean cuts of even chicken, turkey, focus on those plant proteins I talked about. Um, Also, just watching the cholesterol levels too, because there's going to be a lot of cholesterol in those things I just mentioned, those higher fat meats, in your butters, in some of your even like your tropical oils, like your coconut oil or palm kernel oil. And we also really want to watch our trans fat intake as well. A lot of our packaged processed foods contain trans fat, and those, it might or I would just always look at the ingredient list too, and if it says partially hydrogenated oil in it, you know that they have added some trans fat to those, and those are not things that we want that are gonna help with our heart health. We wanna preserve that
Yeah.
heart health as much as we
Uh,
can.
Are you a fan of sort of the Mediterranean diet, that approach?
Yeah, I am. I think it still includes all your food groups. If if individuals really still enjoy meat, but they want to back off meat a little bit and incorporate more fish and more beans, more legumes, fruits and vegetables, healthy oils, your olive oils, your canola oil. Um, those are all components. I feel like with the Mediterranean style eating is really just a really heart healthy way of eating.
Yeah. Let's just quickly go back to the mindful and intuitive eating. It's sort of fascinating. So is what you're talking about and the data that you presented saying that we really should all be eating when we feel we need to eat and not eating based on the clock and when we're supposed to eat, or when the clock tells us to eat? And has there been any work done that, it sounds fascinating, because I'm sure we've all had the experience that we can be busy and the day goes by and we said, wow, I haven't eaten yet, but I wasn't really hungry. But if I was supposed to eat, I would have sat down and eaten something. I mean, how does that work? Can people really fit that into their life, their
Yeah,
schedule?
I think every single day for every meal, it might not happen, obviously, if we just have busier days than others. But I think if we are actually stepping back and asking ourselves, like sometimes I have more flexibility in my day, and even just because it's 12 o'clock, sometimes I'm so ingrained to feel like, oh, that's lunchtime. And I have stepped back and asked myself, okay, am I actually hungry, or am I just eating because this is, 12 o'clock's lunchtime? So I think it's something that might not happen every day, but I do think that by actually thinking more about it and listening to your body and giving it what it needs when it needs it can be very helpful too, instead of ignoring some of those things your body might be telling you.
Right. There were some questions like someone said, I don't find that I'm hungry until 11 o'clock in the morning. Is that okay? And you would probably say, yeah, that's okay if
Yeah.
that's when your body
Yeah.
says you should eat.
Yeah. And that's
Right.
okay too. I never would, it's not like there's this certain time in the morning that is going to be the healthiest for you to eat. I would never want you to feel forced to eat either. If it's 8 o'clock, oh, that doesn't mean
Yeah.
you better sit down and have something. So I feel like it's more listening to your body, what your
How about,
body.
yeah, how about the issue of eating late in the day? Or there were a couple of questions about, I have dinner, maybe at 6 o'clock, and at 10 or 11 o'clock, I kind of have cravings and I want to eat again, and I feel like I shouldn't. Um, but then I feel like in the morning that like my sugar's low. I mean,
Yeah.
really what you're saying, there are no rules. We should follow what our body's telling us.
Yeah, and I think as long as we're following what our bodies are telling us, but also try to choose things, even if it's late at night. Maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to pick something that I know is going to be nutritious for my body. Maybe I'm just going to have a piece of fruit and a little bit of low fat cheese, or maybe just going to have some popcorn and some unsalted nuts. What can I fuel my body with late at night where maybe it fills that craving or curbs that craving? But you're filling it with something other than just something that has a bunch of added sugar in it, or a bunch of empty calories like a candy bar or something like that.
There was a question about a sugar addiction. I just feel like I'm addicted to sugar. I try to stay away from it, and after a couple of days, I'm ready to claw my way back into the pantry. Have you had any luck helping folks who really feel like they have that extraordinary need for sugar?
Yeah, that one's hard. I think if you start to take sugar slowly out of your eating pattern, the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you're likely to crave. So if you're taking some sugar, not these drastic go from all to nothing, but slowly taking some out, your taste buds do change over time. Same thing with salt. if you take some salt out of your diet slowly, you would be surprised that your taste buds will also change. You may not feel that craving for the sugar or the salt, or when you go to eat it, it may feel really, really um just too salty or too sugary because your taste buds do change with that.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice, because I think that's critically important. The American diet is very rich in salt, and we are all spoiled by that. We're running out of time, but let me come back quickly to portion size, because you did talk a little bit about portion size, and one of the questions was, should we be just making a plate for ourselves and say, this is what I should be eating at this meal, and that's it? It's sort of like plating versus family style eating. Or do you put all the food on the table and you just kind of take as much as you want? Is there any rationale behind one way or the other?
Yeah, I think it's up to how your family also eats what's your style of eating. I think if we look at that food plate that, I had shown on one of the slides, that is designed to be just a guideline. But I think it can give a good representation of, okay, I've got some vegetables on my plate, I've got some grains, I've got some fruit. Um, and then even just thinking to yourself too, let's say it's family style and you're still hungry, but you feel like, oh, well, I already had a serving of that. Have another serving of something that's going to be filled with fiber. Have some more fruits and vegetables. Have some more beans. Have some more, if it's a lean meat or fish, have a little bit more of that. That's going to fill you with that nutrient rich food. Maybe you do your one serving of um wild rice or your grain, but then if you want to go back for more, you focus on some getting more vegetables in and some more lean protein in.
All right. Well, Lauren, this was fantastic. We're out of time.